The night sky over the New Mexico desert was clear and filled with stars. Diane Miller adjusted her telescope and checked the readings on her computer screen. As NASA's lead astronomer at the White Sands Observatory, she had spent thousands of nights studying the stars. But tonight was different. "That's weird," she muttered, tapping her screen. The objects she was tracking didn't move like asteroids or satellites. They were slowing down, deliberately. Diane reached for her phone and dialed a number few civilians had access to. "This is Dr. Miller at White Sands. I need to speak with Colonel Jones immediately." 50 miles away, Air Force Colonel Frank Jones was already looking at the same data. The military's deep space radar had picked up the objects 3 hours earlier. Now there were 27 of them, arranged in a perfect formation, slowing as they approach Earth's orbit. "They're not trying to hide," he told his team. "They want us to see them coming." Within 6 hours, every major government on Earth knew. Within 12, the first blurry photos hit the internet. People called them meteors, satellites, or secret military tests. Only a few used the word aliens, mostly as a joke. Then the ships changed course directly toward Earth, and jokes became harder to make. President Davidson called an emergency meeting at the White House. Leaders from Russia, China, the European Union, and India joined by secure video link. Colonel Jones presented what little they knew. The largest ship is approximately 3 miles long. The others range from 1 to 2 miles. They're using technology we can't even begin to understand. "Time until they reach Earth?" the president asked. "Approximately 48 hours, Madam President." No one spoke for several seconds. The Chinese premier finally broke the silence. "What are our options?" The truth was, they had none. Earth's most powerful weapons would be useless against visitors who could cross interstellar space. All they could do was wait. The aliens made their first broadcast exactly 36 hours later. Every television, radio, phone, and computer on Earth received the same message simultaneously. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Hegemony, rulers of 50,000 worlds. Your planet is now under our protection and control. Resistance is unnecessary and inadvisable. Prepare to receive our representatives." Colonel Jones watched the message with Diane Miller at the hastily established First Contact Command Center. "They speak perfect English," Diane said. "They've been studying us for a while." "That's what concerns me," Jones replied. "If they know us so well, why would they think this approach would work?" The massive alien ships entered Earth's orbit the next day. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. Sleek black vessels with glowing blue energy fields surrounding them. The largest took position over the United Nations building in New York, casting a shadow over half the city. The world held its breath, waiting for panic or chaos. Instead, something unexpected happened. It started with a tweet. Someone posted a picture of the ship over New York with the caption, "Independence Day vibes." But their timing is off. Aliens always attack on July 4th. Everyone knows that. Within hours, the internet exploded with memes. People compared the ships to every science fiction movie ever made. They photoshopped silly hats onto blurry pictures of the vessels. Late-night comedians joked about aliens traveling across the galaxy only to use cliches from bad movies. When the hegemony sent smaller craft down to hover over major cities in an obvious show of force, people gathered in parks below them, holding signs that read, "Welcome to Earth," and "We come in peace, just kidding." In Los Angeles, a food truck parked directly under a hovering alien craft and offered invader specials. They sold out in 2 hours. The hegemony's second message was more stern. "Your planet is now under our authority. Surrender your governments and military forces immediately." The United Nations Secretary General responded with an official message of Earth's own. It was dignified and diplomatic, asking for peaceful dialogue. But the message that truly represented humanity was the one that went viral immediately after. A compilation of clips from every alien invasion movie ever made, set to Queen's Another One Bites the Dust. The galactic hegemony had arrived in force, expecting fear and submission. Humanity just mocked them instead. Admiral Xorthak stood on the command deck of the hegemony flagship, his scaled face turning a deep purple with rage. The main screen displayed thousands of human social media posts mocking his armada. His second-in-command carefully kept his distance. "They laugh at us," Xorthak hissed. "In 50,000 planetary conquests, no species has ever laughed." "Perhaps they don't understand the situation," his officer suggested. "Then we will make it clearer." The Admiral's claws tapped commands into his control panel. "Prepare the demonstration." The United Nations building was packed beyond capacity. Every nation had sent representatives for the emergency session. Samantha Wright, the U.S. delegate, scrolled through her phone as the Secretary General called for order. "The aliens are tweeting," she whispered to the British representative beside her. "They're what?" "Tweeting. They've created official social media accounts." She held up her phone. The galactic hegemony's first post read, "Final warning to Earth. Surrender or face consequences. This is not a joke." Already it had thousands of replies, most of them GIFs from sci-fi movies. The Secretary General cleared his throat. "We need a unified response to this threat. Our military options are non-existent. They have technology centuries beyond ours." "Maybe we need a different approach," Samantha said, standing up. "They keep using lines from our movies. What if that's because they don't actually know how to talk to us? What if everything they know about Earth comes from our broadcasts?" Jack Harris wasn't important. He ran a small radio station in Nebraska that mostly played country music. When the aliens arrived, he'd started doing commentary between songs. "Folks, I'm looking at pictures of these alien ships, and I gotta say their design team needs firing. Very derivative. We've seen better in movies from the 90s. He didn't know his station was being monitored by both human intelligence agencies and the aliens themselves. He didn't know his casual jokes were being analyzed by the hegemony's cultural experts who couldn't understand why he wasn't terrified. Jack just kept talking. "If these aliens are so advanced, why do they need ships at all? Couldn't they just email us their demands? Save on parking." His listeners loved it. His audience grew from local to national overnight. The hegemony made good on their threat the next day. They used an energy weapon to vaporize a small uninhabited island in the Pacific. The blast was visible from space. They'd broadcast the demonstration worldwide. "This is but a fraction of our power," the alien message stated. "Your governments have 24 hours to surrender." The UN called another emergency session. This time, Samantha Wright came prepared. "Look at how they communicate," she told the assembly. "The dramatic ultimatum. The demonstration of power. The deadline. They're following a script. And it's our script. Everything they do matches our fiction about alien invasions." The Chinese representative, Lai, nodded slowly. "So they expect us to either surrender or fight conventionally. Both responses they understand." "Exactly," Samantha said. "But what if we did neither?" The plan came together in hours. Every nation contributed. The Russians offered their broadcasting expertise. The Japanese provided technical support. Even countries with long-standing conflicts worked together. As the hegemony's deadline approached, Admiral Xorthak prepared to order attacks on Earth's major cities. His intelligence officers reported that human military forces were not mobilizing as expected. Instead, there was unusual activity on broadcast frequencies. "They surrender?" he asked. "No, Admiral. They're inviting us to a party." At exactly the deadline, Earth responded, not with white flags or missiles, but with a coordinated global broadcast. Every screen on the alien ship suddenly displayed the same thing. A montage of welcome parties from films, celebrities waving, concert footage, and people dancing. The message was simple. "Welcome to Earth. Let's talk. But first, let us show you how we party." The hegemony's cultural experts were baffled. Their invasion protocols had no contingency for this. Admiral Xorthak stared at the screen, his scales now turning a confused yellow-green. "What kind of strategy is this?" he demanded. No one in his command had an answer. The hegemony sent scout ships to major cities the next morning. In New York, 7 sleek black vessels hovered between skyscrapers, their weapons visibly charged and ready. Similar scenes play out in London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and dozens of other cities worldwide. Andy Clark wiped down the bar counter and watched the alien ship outside his window. His bar sat on the 20th floor of a Manhattan hotel, giving a perfect view of the nearest scout ship. Instead of closing like authorities suggested, he had put up a sign: "Alien Invasion Happy Hour. All drinks half price." The place was packed. "Hey, has anyone tried communicating with them directly?" asked Maria Gomes, an off-duty police officer nursing a beer at the bar. "You mean besides all the people mooning them from rooftops?" Andy replied. Maria pulled out her phone and took a picture of the ship. She added a cartoon speech bubble saying, "We come from space to try your tacos," and posted it online. Within minutes, it had thousands of shares. Outside, someone had projected a giant smiley face onto the side of a building facing the alien vessel. Lieutenant Commander Grace Peters wasn't laughing. She led a covert Navy team observing the alien scout ship hovering over San Diego. Hidden in an office building, her team used specialized equipment to analyze the vessel's emissions and responses. "They're scanning everything," she told her team. "Radio waves, cell signals, power grids." One of her technicians, a young man named Eddie, was listening to various frequencies when he noticed something. "Commander, look at this reading. Every time this local rock station plays, there's a fluctuation in their shield pattern." Peters looked at the data. Are they reacting to the music? They tested the theory, broadcasting different frequencies directly at the ship. Certain sound patterns cause measurable disruptions in the alien technology. Peters immediately reported the finding to command. Meanwhile, college student Kevin Williams had gathered an online army of hackers. They weren't trying to break into the alien systems that would be impossible with unfamiliar technology. Instead, they were watching how the aliens communicated. "They're using our internet," Kevin told his fellow hackers in their secure chat room. "They're monitoring everything we post, trying to understand us." "Let's give them something to monitor," suggested another hacker. They coordinated a plan. Within hours, millions of people began posting the same message across all platforms. "We know about the blue light." There was no blue light. It meant nothing. But the identical message appearing everywhere got the aliens' attention. The hegemony's communication experts frantically searched their databases for references to a blue light, but found nothing significant. Security teams began checking their ships for any blue lights that might be visible to humans. Admiral Xorthak demanded answers. "What is this blue light they speak of?" "Unknown, Admiral," his intelligence officer replied. "It may be a coded message or a cultural reference we haven't decoded. Or a trick," Xorthak hissed. "They're testing our reactions." Dr. Ellie Bennett worked around the clock at NASA's linguistics lab. Using recordings of the aliens' communications, she and her team had begun to recognize patterns in their language. "Their language is very precise and hierarchical," she explained to Colonel Jones. "Each sentence contains markers of rank and status. They literally cannot speak to each other as equals." "Can you understand what they're saying to each other?" Jones asked. "Bits and pieces, enough to know they're confused." She played a recording. "This is between 2 of their ships. The translation is rough, but one asks, why do humans create image of commanding officer with what they call googly eyes?" Jones couldn't help smiling. "They really don't understand us, do they?" "No," Bennett replied. "And it's driving them crazy. Their society is completely ordered and structured. Humor, especially mocking authority, doesn't translate. It might even be physically impossible for their brains to process irony. President Davidson received the reports from around the world. The aliens' confusion was growing. The discovery about sound frequencies affecting their technology was especially promising. "We need to coordinate our next move," she told her advisors. "If we can keep them off balance, we might just have a chance." She authorized a new operation with a name suggested by a junior staffer, Operation Party Crasher. The hegemony wouldn't know what hit them. Admiral Thorthak had run out of patience. 3 days had passed since their arrival, and the humans still refused to take the invasion seriously. The time for demonstrations was over. "Target the island chain in the Pacific," he ordered. "No population centers, but make sure they can see it from their mainland." The hegemony's largest ship positioned itself over the target. A beam of intense blue light shot downward, and a small uninhabited island simply disappeared. The blast sent massive waves across the ocean and left a circular crater where land had been moments before. The message broadcast immediately after was clear. "This is your final warning. Surrender your governments within 6 hours, or we will target populated areas." In the White House Situation Room, President Davidson watched the demonstration with her advisors. "They're getting desperate," Colonel Jones said. "This isn't how they expected this to go." "Is Operation Party Crasher ready?" the President asked. "Yes, Madam President. NASA and the Navy have confirmed the frequency disruption. Music between 75 and 150 Hz causes the most interference with their systems, especially with heavy percussion." Davidson picked up a secure phone. "Tell all participating nations, Operation Party Crasher begins in 1 hour." Around the world, modified broadcast equipment was aimed at the hegemony ships. Military bases, radio stations, and even civilian volunteers with powerful speakers took positions. The countdown began. At exactly 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time, humanity launched its counterattack, not with missiles or bombs, but with music. Every genre imaginable: rock, classical, hip-hop, country, electronic dance music, all blasted simultaneously at the alien ships. The effect was immediate. The hegemony vessels' lights flickered. Their perfect formations wobbled. Some of the smaller scout ships dipped dangerously close to buildings before regaining altitude. Inside the flagship, Admiral Thorthak clutched his control panel as the ship shuddered around him. Warning signals blared from every station. "What is happening?" he demanded. "The humans are attacking with sound waves," his science officer reported, voice tight with pain. "The frequencies are disrupting our navigation systems and causing physical discomfort to our crew." "Shut down external sensors," the Admiral ordered. "Sir, if we do that, we'll be flying blind." "Do it anyway." The music assault continued for 30 minutes. When it finally stopped, the hegemony ships had retreated to higher orbit, out of range of the sound attack. Dr. Ellie Bennett had made another breakthrough in understanding the alien language. She played a recording for the President's team. "This is a communication between their flagship and one of their scout ships," she explained. The scout ship commander said, "Humans do not respond like other species, request new protocols," and listen to the response from their admiral. The alien voice sounded agitated, even through the translation software. "There are no new protocols. They must either submit or fight properly." "They have no playbook for this," Jones realized. "Their entire conquest strategy depends on us following the expected script." President Davidson nodded. "Then we continue to tear up their script." "What's next in Operation Party Crasher?" "Phase 2, Colonel Jones said with a rare smile. "Cultural bombardment." Kevin Williams and his hacker collective had infiltrated the edges of the alien communication network. They couldn't breach their security, but they could flood their monitoring systems with data. "Ready for the biggest spam attack in history?" Kevin asked his online team. The response was enthusiastic. They launched their program, automatically generating millions of messages tagged with keywords the aliens were known to monitor. Each message contained random human cultural references, memes, jokes, and slang that would make no sense to the hegemony translators. Meanwhile, Major Ben Cooper of the Army Signal Corps prepared specialized satellite dishes. They had been modified to beam concentrated information directly at the alien ships. "What exactly are we sending them?" one of his technicians asked. Cooper grinned. "Everything. The complete history of human entertainment. Reality TV, cat videos, stand-up comedy, soap operas, video games, the works." "Will that hurt them?" "Not physically," Cooper replied. "But based on what we know about their rigid society, exposure to our chaotic culture might just drive them crazy." The cultural bombardment began at midnight. The hegemony never saw it coming. The hegemony ships in orbit received the first wave of Earth's cultural bombardment at 12:01 a.m. What started as a simple data scan quickly overwhelmed their filtering systems. Every screen on every ship suddenly displayed a chaotic stream of human entertainment. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Xorthak watched in horror as his crew stared at their screens, transfixed by the images. A junior officer was watching something called cat videos with his mouth slightly open. Another had become fascinated by a cooking competition. Even his most disciplined warriors were distracted. "Turn it off," Xorthak roared. "All of it." The systems officer tried, but the humans had found a weakness in their protocols. "Sir, I can't block it without shutting down all communication systems." 3 decks below, a hegemony soldier named Krivak watched something called America's Funniest Home Videos with growing confusion. In his 20 years of military service, he had never seen anything like it. People deliberately recorded their own failures and accidents, and then shared them. For entertainment. The concept was so foreign that he couldn't look away. The hegemony taught that failure was shameful, to be hidden at all costs. Yet these humans celebrated their mistakes, laughed at them, shared them with others. Something changed in Krivak's mind as he watched. A tiny crack in a lifetime of rigid thinking. On Earth, Major Ben Cooper monitored the data streams from a command center in Colorado. "They're not blocking it," he told his team with satisfaction. "They're watching." Dr. Ryan Murphy, a psychologist working with the military, explained the strategy to President Davidson. "Their society is completely hierarchical. They have no concept of individualism or free expression. Exposure to our culture, where we question authority and celebrate differences, is like a virus to their worldview." "Will it be enough to stop them?" the president asked. "It's already working," Murphy replied. "We're getting reports of unusual behavior on their ships. Some are broadcasting signals that don't match their usual patterns." One of those unusual signals came from Krivak's ship. After 12 hours of non-stop exposure to human culture, he had made a decision that would have been unthinkable days before. He took control of his scout ship's communication system and sent a message directly to Earth. "Humans, your Netflix is impressive. Request more episodes of The Great British Bake Off and information on how humans can fail without punishment. We'll exchange hegemony technical data." The message was received by a surprised communications team in London. They immediately relayed it to Unified Command, who debated how to respond. "It could be a trap," Colonel Jones warned. "Or it could be our first defector," Diane Miller countered. "We should take the chance." They directed the scout ship to land in an uninhabited area of the Scottish Highlands. Special forces surrounded the landing site, but when the ship's door opened, Krivak emerged alone with his hands raised in what he had learned was a human peace gesture. "I wish to request asylum," he announced, "and cooking lessons." Admiral Xorthak received news of the defection with cold fury. His scales turned almost black with rage, a reaction not seen in a hegemony commander for centuries. "Prepare for ground assault," he ordered. "We will take their centers of government and media by force." His executive officer, Commander Zeal, looked troubled. "Sir, with respect, many of our troops have been exposed to human culture. Their loyalty may be compromised. Then send in the mineshield units." Xorthak hissed. They are immune to cultural contamination. The Mind Shield were the hegemony's elite troops, specially conditioned to resist outside influence. They had been held in stasis since the invasion fleet launched, preserved from any contact with human broadcasts. As the first transport ships carrying Mind Shield troops entered Earth's atmosphere, humanity prepared for the next phase of their unconventional defense. No one knew what would happen when the hegemony's most hardened warriors encountered Earth's culture up close and personal. The Mind Shield troops landed in 12 major cities across Earth. In Washington, D.C., 5 transport ships descended onto the National Mall. When their doors opened, soldiers in sleek black armor marched out in perfect formation. Their helmets completely covered their faces, with no visible eye slits or breathing apparatus. Colonel Jones watched the live feed from the Pentagon. "Those helmets must be blocking all outside input," he said. "That's how they're protecting them from our cultural influences." The Mind Shield troops moved with machine-like precision toward the Capitol building. Their weapons were raised, ready to fire on anyone who resisted. But the people of Washington didn't run or hide. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Steve Turner had been a firefighter in D.C. for 15 years. When he saw the alien troops marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, he did something that surprised even himself. He walked right up to them with a cooler in his hands. "You guys must be hot in all that armor," he called out. "Beer? We're having a cookout over there." He pointed to where some locals had indeed set up grills in the park, seemingly unconcerned about the invasion. The lead Mind Shield soldier stopped, weapon trained on Steve. For a tense moment, everyone watching expected the worst. Then the soldier cocked his head to one side, as if confused. Similar scenes played out in cities worldwide. In Tokyo, teenagers approached the alien troops and tried to take selfies with them. In Rio de Janeiro, people invited the grim soldiers to join a spontaneous street party. In London, an elderly woman offered them tea. The Mind Shield troops had been trained to deal with resistance, with terror, with military opposition. They had no protocols for hospitality. Back in the Pentagon, reports flooded in from around the world. The aliens were confused, hesitating, breaking formation to deal with civilians who simply wouldn't behave like conquered people. Professor Carol Davis from MIT had been studying the brain scans of Krivak, the defector. She rushed into the crisis meeting with new information. "Their biology explains everything," she told the assembled officials. "The hegemony species evolved as hive-minded predators. Their brains physically cannot process certain concepts we take for granted." She displayed the scan on a large screen. "See this area? In humans, it processes irony, humor, and contradiction. In their brains, it's almost non-existent. They literally cannot understand jokes or sarcasm. So when we respond with humor instead of fear," Colonel Jones began, "it short-circuits their thinking," Davis confirmed. "It's like trying to divide by zero for their brains." In Chicago, the Mind Shield troops had reached their target, the Willis Tower. But their march had been continuously disrupted by civilians offering food, taking pictures, asking for autographs, or simply walking alongside them, as if they were part of a parade. The unit commander finally stopped and turned to his second-in-command. "Why are they not afraid?" he asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Before his subordinate could answer, someone started playing music nearby. Loud music with a heavy beat. The commander felt his helmet's filters struggling to block the sound vibrations. Something in the frequencies bypassed their technological protections. The same was happening in cities across the world. The Mind Shield troops found themselves surrounded not by enemies, but by people treating them like celebrities or interesting visitors. Their training had never covered this scenario. On his flagship, Admiral Xorthak received increasingly confused reports from his ground forces. "Sir, the humans are feeding our troops. The cultural contamination is spreading even to the Mind Shield units. We have lost contact with 3 squads in the human city called New Orleans after they were invited to something called a jazz club." Xorthak smashed his fist against his command console. Impossible. Nothing can break mindshield conditioning. But the evidence was undeniable. The ground invasion was failing, not because of human military might, but because of human hospitality. Commander Zeal approached cautiously. "Admiral, perhaps we should consider." "No retreats." Torthak roared. "Send in our remaining forces. I will lead them myself if necessary." What the Admiral didn't know was that Commander Zeal had begun secretly watching human soap operas, and he had started to question everything he had ever been taught about leadership and loyalty. Commander Zeal stood outside Admiral Sorthak's quarters, gathering his courage. What he was about to do would be considered the highest treason in the hegemony's 50,000-year history. But after a week of watching human entertainment, something had changed in him. He entered without announcing himself, a breach of protocol that instantly drew the Admiral's attention. "What is the meaning of this?" Sorthak demanded, his scales darkening with anger. Instead of answering, Zeal activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is Commander Zeal to all hegemony forces. I am initiating Emergency Protocol 557. Protocol 557 was a contingency plan for when a commander went rogue. It transferred all command functions to the second-in-command, in this case, from Torthak to Zeal himself. "What are you doing?" the Admiral hissed. "This is mutiny." "No," Zeal replied calmly. "This is growth." Across the hegemony fleet, confused officers watched their monitors as Commander Zeal's first official order came through. All ships will begin broadcasting human entertainment channels to the crew. Viewing is mandatory. On Earth, NASA engineer Paul Martin led a team that had been working around the clock to understand alien technology. With help from the defector Krivak, they had reverse-engineered parts of a damaged scout ship. "Their network is hierarchical, just like their society," Paul explained to Colonel Jones. "Everything flows from the top down." "Can we use that?" Jones asked. Paul smiled. "We already are. We found a backdoor into their communication system. Right now, we're replacing their actual orders with alternatives." On hegemony ships across Earth orbit, confused officers received strange new commands. All troops to participate in karaoke night at 2100 hours. New uniform protocol. Hawaiian shirts now acceptable for off-duty personnel. Today's tactical briefing replaced by screening of the Great British Bake Off season final. The chain of command began to break down. Lower-ranking officers, already influenced by Earth's media, embraced the apparent loosening of regulations. Higher-ranking officials, recognizing the orders as fake, tried to reassert control but found their subordinates increasingly resistant. In London, Dr. Bennett monitored communications between hegemony ships. "It's working," she told her team excitedly. "Their command structure is falling apart. Listen to this." She played a recording of an alien captain arguing with his second-in-command. "The dancing order is false. Return to battle stations." "But sir, the dancing is improving crew morale. And I've been practicing my moonwalk." Word of the conflict reached the Galactic Council, the hegemony's ruling body, via long-range communication. The council members, ancient beings who had overseen thousands of planetary conquests, were disturbed by the reports. "Admiral Torthak has failed to subjugate this primitive world," the High Counselor asked, disbelief in his voice. "The situation is unusual," an aide replied carefully. "The humans are not responding according to any known pattern. Send High Inquisitor Draknar to investigate and restore order," the council decreed. High Inquisitor Draknar was the hegemony's most feared enforcer. No rebellion had ever withstood his arrival. His ship, sleeker and darker than even the fleet's flagship, entered Earth's solar system 3 days later. As Draknar approached Earth, he received conflicting messages. Admiral Xorthak claimed to be under illegal detention by his second-in-command. Commander Zeal invited the Inquisitor to something called a welcome party. Ground forces sent incomprehensible reports about human hospitality tactics and something called TikTok challenges. Draknar decided to see for himself. His personal shuttle descended toward a small American town called Lakeside, Ohio, chosen for its apparent insignificance. Surely here he could observe humans in their natural state, undistorted by military or political considerations. What he didn't know was that Lakeside was hosting its annual baking festival that weekend. When his shuttle landed in the town square, instead of running in terror, the townspeople assumed he was part of the festival's entertainment. Betty Wilson, the 68-year-old head of the festival committee, approached the shuttle as its door opened. Draknar emerged, 7 feet tall in his ceremonial black armor, his face a mask of intimidation that had made planetary leaders surrender on sight. Betty looked up at him and smiled warmly. "You're just in time. The pie judging starts in 15 minutes. Would you like to be a guest judge?" High Inquisitor Draknar had never tasted anything like apple pie in his 800 years of existence. As he sat at the judge's table in Lakeside, Ohio, he struggled to maintain his fearsome demeanor. "What do you think?" Betty Wilson asked, watching him carefully cut another bite with his fork. "This combination of sweetness and spice is concerning," Draknar replied, trying to sound official. "I require further samples to complete my analysis." 3 hours later, Draknar had judged 27 pies, learned about human baking techniques, and completely forgotten to call his ship. When he finally remembered his mission, he found himself reluctant to leave the festival. "I must report to the Galactic Council," he told Betty, "but I will return tomorrow for the cake competition." When Draknar's report reached the Galactic Council, the ancient leaders were stunned into silence. The hegemony's most feared enforcer was recommending not only an end to the invasion, but the establishment of trade relations, cultural exchange programs, and something called the Intergalactic Bake-Off. "High Inquisitor," the council leader said carefully, "have you been compromised by human influence?" "You don't understand," Draknar replied, uncharacteristic excitement in his voice. "They have perfected the art of creating pleasure through simple molecular compounds. They call it sugar and butter. And their method of cultural competition without violence is fascinating." The council deliberated for days. Reports from Admiral Sorthak painted humans as dangerous cultural contaminants. Reports from Commander Zeal, now backed by a majority of the fleet's officers, described humans as potential allies with unique perspectives. Reports from Draknar mostly focused on recipes. Finally, the council reached a decision. The hegemony would withdraw from Earth, designating it a protected cultural zone, too dangerous for regular contact. Only specially trained diplomats would be allowed to interact with humans. On Earth, the news of the hegemony's retreat was met with celebration, but also some disappointment. Many people had grown fond of the increasingly friendly aliens who had gone from invaders to awkward tourists in just 2 weeks. In a surprise move, Admiral Sorthak requested political asylum on Earth. "I cannot return to the hegemony," he told President Davidson. "I have been changed by my time here." The council would never understand. 6 months later, Sorthak sat in a television studio, adjusting his tie. His scales had lightened to a pleasant blue, indicating contentment. The stage manager gave him a thumbs up. "Welcome back to Late Night with Sorthak, where we look at the galaxy from a slightly different perspective." The audience applauded as the former admiral grinned at the camera. "Tonight we have a special guest, the first official hegemony ambassador to Earth." Dr. Ellie Bennett sat in her new office at the United Nations, looking over a draft of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Treaty. Across from her, Krivak, now officially the first hegemony defector granted Earth citizenship, helped translate complex concepts. "This section about humor being a non-aggressive form of conflict resolution is giving the council translators fits," Krivak said, chuckling. In the months since his defection, he had developed an impressive understanding of human jokes. "Tell them it's like behavioral molting," Bennett suggested. "Sometimes you need to shed old ideas to grow." At the White House, President Davidson welcomed representatives from 12 alien species who had heard about Earth's unique approach to the hegemony invasion. "For centuries, We thought military strength was the only path to galactic respect, she told them. Instead, we found that pie contests worked just as well. The story of how Earth defeated the galaxy's greatest military power with memes, music, and hospitality spread across the stars. Tourism to the small blue planet increased dramatically, with visitors eager to experience dangerous human concepts like sarcasm, reality television, and ice cream. In the Galactic Council's halls, a new chamber was built, one where representatives didn't sit according to rank, but in a circle as equals. They called it the Earth Room, and it was there that the most innovative policies now originated. And on a small farm in Ohio, Betty Wilson taught baking classes to aliens from across the galaxy, gently explaining that yes, it was perfectly acceptable to laugh when your soufflé collapsed. The Galactic Empire had arrived in force, expecting fear and submission. Humanity had mocked them, and in doing so, changed the galaxy forever.